We're back to Neil Haley Show here on the Total Celebrity segment. And we've kind of started to highlight Walking with Her when we had a great interview with George Lopez. But now we have to kind of jump into something that's really interesting, how the movie was made. Someone wrote the book. And here's the thing. The dreams of every author when they put their vision on paper is that to make it a movie. So I'm excited to welcome the program author and screenwriter of this again, Joe Bullock. Joe of Walking with Her. Joe, how are you?
Just fine. How are you, Neil?
And it's a dream of every author, right? When you say I'm going to write a book, I want it to become a movie next, right? So kind of tell us the journey of the book. Yeah, go ahead.
A lot of people, you're like, well, the journey went like this: is I've had my bucket list to write a book at some time. About the only thing I've written that's been published. I wrote a story about my dad that was in Golf Digest, but I decided to write this book. I've been throwing things in a file, just and I decided to look and say, I think there's a book here now. And I put the book together in 2015 and had it self-published. I was fortunate that I'm friends with both Ross Marks, who's and his father-in-law, Mark Medoff, who Mark won the Tony Award for Children of a Lesser God, and that the play he wrote, that play was made into a movie of the same name, which was nominated for an Oscar. And in fact, the female lead won the Oscar for that. But Ross's son-in-law, or Mark's son-in-law, Ross, who's a director. In fact, he won Best Director at Sundance a few years ago. He got my book, said, Joe, I think there's a movie here. And so he wrote a script for it. He took it over to his father-in-law to read. And Mark said, you're fired, Ross. I'm going to write the story. And Mark was in failing health. I think this project kept him alive another year. But he just sort of sequestered himself for about 3 months doing nothing but working on this script. And he just did a wonderful job with it because, well, he's a genius. He took the story from a little deeper, dark place to the journey is further for the protagonist than it was in the book. And that's Mark did such a great job with that. And I tell you, he sent the script out to Hollywood to Edward J. Olmos, our lead character.
Yes.
And Edward, I guess, called Mark back and said, I don't want to do this movie. I have to do this movie. It's the best script I've ever had.
Wow.
And as long as Edward J. Olmos been around, that's saying something.
So how lucky were you that you had a contact to Edward James Olmos?
I think that's mainly Mark's contact. Mark has been around.
But that's who you know. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't.
Mark, he's been a long time professor at Mexico State where I went to school, and we'd played golf together over the years. And
so golf has a lot to do with the story in so many ways. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Meaning golf, meaning your life as a golfer made you write the book.
Yes, that had a lot to do with it. I grew up in a golfing family. My dad was a perennial champion of our hometown. Artesian was a great golfer and taught us boys a lot of things about life through golf. He had 3 boys, so it was a perfect foursome to go out and kind of babysit us on the golf course, really. So
one sport that really didn't stop the pandemic, like people kept golfing for only a short period of time off with the pandemic versus any other sport, for sure. Meaning, is the way social distancing works better with golf.
It's a better sport. You force in golf, get 4 different carts, or if they're walking, just stay away from each other. And so golf, it's probably about the healthiest sport during the pandemic.
Okay, so let's kind of delve into this. So I love the story. I watched the trailer, but I love the story and the fact of you. It reminds me, you must be a fan of the days of the God movies, and it's coming to me in a second, where they talk to George Burns. What are those God movies? Because if you think of that a little bit in a way of those stories and journeys. Remember when George Burns played God in all those movies?
God with John Denver.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities to that.
But see, that's not copying because that's years later. I mean, think of it. When was that out? And I'm remembering that. That's 70s, right? That's late 70s, early 80s.
I think so.
Yeah, of all those, and just the amazing story. And I didn't remember it was John Denver. Oh my gosh, I'm showing my age, even though I'm 48. But I mean, that's what's so cool about it is, and then it just becomes funny. I mean, like, okay, oh yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and choose golfing, right? We're gonna choose that he's got a mission. Edward James has a mission, but the mission is that he's got to become a professional, become a great golfer, which he's not done for years, and kind of just changed and transformed his life. Then throw George Lopez in as the guidance on the big motorcycle. So was that all the same kind of storyline in your book?
Quite a bit, except the like I say, it's a longer journey for Joe. In the movie, Joe starts with being in a very dark place. He just lost a grandchild that passed away, and his faith is just gone. And then God contacts him about this mission. And throughout, as he develops the mission, his faith becomes restored again, too. And so he goes from a very dark spiritual place to a very wonderful spiritual place toward the end of the movie. And that's a nice journey. And, when you talked about the old God movie, I think we both have a lot of similarities there in that we're trying to deliver a spiritual message, a message of hope. And it's kind of a spiritual vitamin pill, but there's so much humor in it, it helps the pill go down easy.
Exactly. It's something that could happen, right? God's angel could show up. God could call and tell a plan. And it would in the everyday life. It's not thrown every second into the spiritual realm, but it's thrown in comedy and humor that, wow, you got two people that are not always the God movies and Edward James and George Lopez that everyone are so familiar with, and other great cast members. So even though it has a spiritual component, really tells a funny story in so many ways.
Well, and I said I wasn't necessarily wanting to preach to the choir. I was wanting to attract people into this who would not normally buy a spiritual book or go to just a strictly spiritual movie, and then hopefully they get the message and they'd actually go to see.
See, this is again, we already saw for our audience, especially for my audience, that I'm really trying to talk more about the behind. We've already talked about the movie with our interview with George Lopez. So just to give you that heads up for our listeners out there, if you didn't tune in, check out George's for the premise, but let's dive in deeper into this. The thing that's funny about this is how old was Edward James supposed to be when he's trying to compete with golfers half his age, right? How old was he supposed to be? Yeah.
In the movie, he's in the book, and the movie's the same age, 63.
Yeah. And so was this a dream of yours that you can go wake up tomorrow and God tells you to go play golf and be able to play with the best of the best at 63 years old?
Every time I'm on the practice range, my swing starts working well, I think I can do it. Sign me up for the Masters. I'm ready. I walk over. Then I walk over to the first tee and reality sets in again.
Exactly. Reality said the same thing of me trying to get back in the pro wrestling ring again at 48 when I was younger and what I could do, but I could do it just like golf. Two sports that pro wrestling, you could be 80 years old and wrestle. And there's seriously pro wrestlers that have jumped in the ring at 70, and golf, they can golf to your late 80s. So it's just a sport that people could say the reality, but compete against professional golfers. That's another thing coming.
Yeah.
The movies reminds me also, I think, in a lot of ways, of famous golf movies. People love golf movies. They love comedy golf movies. What are your favorite comedy golf movies of all time?
Well, everybody likes Caddyshack.
Yes.
And as silly as is the movie that one of our stars, Chris McDonald's in. It's the guy who's a hockey player.
Yes, Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore. I don't know
how. Yes, Happy
Chris
Gilmore.
McDonald, Shooter is from that movie. He's in our movie.
Oh, I didn't know he was. I love to interview him. Huge fan of his. Yeah.
Oh, and he was part of make the whole thing so special. Neil, to an actor, they all said this was the most fun movie they ever worked on. Everybody just had a blast doing this together. It was just a real
to luck out to get this kind of cast. And it's not just Chris McDonald too. You have even more really notable stars in this film.
Kathleen Quinlan, and she just did a fantastic job. We have Billy Boyd, who was Pippin in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
We have from the Golf Channel, David Faherty and Terry from the Golf Channel, and but
there's only a handful of golf movies. So you think that you can get the whole golf audience, even the people that are not spiritual, to watch this in your opinion?
I hope so. There's golf is very much in the movie, but there's also a lot of other good things in the movie aside from golf. As far as the book goes, I've had some of my best compliments come from people who aren't golfers who read the book and said, "Gee, I don't know much about golf. I sure like this."
So when did your book come out?
2015. It was self-published. One of the things I did as a neophyte, one of the things I did that turned out to be a very good idea, was I sent drafts of the book to a lot of very influential people, and I got nice endorsements back from people like Bernard Langer, Hal Sutton,
Okay. Okay.
Bill Rogers,
Yeah.
and other famous sports figures. One of the very helpful things that, Kim Blanchard, who wrote the 1 Minute Manager in those book,
Okay.
he called me. He said, I read this draft. I really like it. Here's some advice. And he gave me some advice. He said, go get it self-published. If you just send it to conventional publishers, you just get back a bunch of rejection ships. They just don't take on new authors, really. And so I did that. And he steered me toward a self-publishing company that did it. And that was very helpful from Ken. I really appreciate that. But I got those endorsements from those people. I think they're on the cover of the book. And I think that really makes it, gives it a lot of credibility to the book.
It truly does gives credibility to the book. And I think that's the power of it, right? The power of that book, doing that. And then as a self-published author, now this amazing thing, a self-published author, now a movie. What a journey. What a phenomenal journey, Joe. Right?
It's just surreal. I go from a guy that just never written a book before to having all this happen. It's just surreal.
Absolutely. So what's your background, Joe? What did you say? Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, I grew up in a small town of Artesia, New Mexico, 12,000 happy folks. And I came to college here at Mexico State University. Then I got into banking in Colorado, and I started banking at the age of 23. I had a good break. The president of the bank left. They made me the president of the bank at the age of 28, which was much like a battlefield promotion. I learned a lot, but had a bunch of these really nice farmers and ranchers on the boards that took me under their wing and really taught me a lot of things. And so I've basically managing banks all my life. I played golf on the college team, and it was a pretty good amateur golfer when I was young, won some city championships and things like this. And gradually, as I got married, much like our hero in the movie,
right?
My family became much more important than golf, and my skills sort of atrophied away. Got to where it's kind of, as you play less golf, you play less well, which makes you want to play even less.
Right. I played in college for fun, and then busted my shoulder up being a former professional wrestler after that, and never played golf again. So I understand the golf skills. It's just hard with bad shoulders to golf.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
For
so,
sure.
So that kind of mirrored my story as far as golf. And now I'm 72 years old, and I'm kind of going to start retiring here pretty soon. And
okay.
I'll probably get serious about my golf game, even though I'll probably have to play. My dad used to be a very good golfer, but he invented, and he was like a scratch golfer. I mean, as he got old, he developed this concept of happy golf. And happy golf, and his definition was to find 3 people you can still stand, but you can still beat, and go play with them.
Exactly.
So I'm going to find 3 people I can still beat.
Wow, it's exciting times for you with the book and the movie and all these different things, Joe. And don't you agree?
Yes, it was so much fun making the movie, and it was frustrating that the COVID thing just shut us down for a year here or so. And we had everything was going very well ahead of schedule, everything till the COVID thing hit. In fact, the week that Hollywood shut down, that was a week that we had a movie showing at United Artists Studio for about 76 of the biggest movie people in Hollywood.
Okay.
And that was the week that the COVID just shut Hollywood down.
All right, Joe. So when does the movie come out?
The Fathom event is going to start here at the end of April. I'm sorry, and then we're going to theaters in early May.
Okay, so great. So it's coming out early May, the movie. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Put it in theaters in April, right?
Yes. Toward the end of April, they're going to have one of these Fathom events, and then it's going to go from there to the regular box office the first week in May. And we're busy right now. Our people are doing some marketing the international rights, which I think those they'll come out probably a little bit later. From what again, I'm on neophyte in the movie business, but from what I understand, that the people that work on the international things want to see how the initial domestic box office release did. That kind of sets the pattern for what they're going to do.
All right, fantastic. Where can we connect with the movie? What best place is the website, right?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. I appreciate it, Joe. And your book's still available on Amazon, right? To purchase.
Yes, Amazon, and I believe if you call Barnes & Noble, they'll get it for you through their channels. But Amazon seems to be the way that most people get it. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, Joe. What a great journey. What a great story. And I appreciate you coming by.
Well, it's fun. Thank you very much, Neil. I appreciate you having me.
All right, take care. Thanks again. All right, bye-bye. You're listening to Neil Haley Show, and we'll be back in just a moment.